And Friends comes away with a rebound and a chance to take the lead. 33-32, Emerlehu going for the lead from the left wing. Emerlehu with the triple on the move, ready to run her from 8 feet. No, Jackson snares down the miss and then puts it home for the right side. Jackson in double figures for Friends. Trey Reed looking inside, off to Emerlehu, turns down to 3, kicks it left wing to Trey Reed. He drives in the lane, now to the rim, scoops it up and in, and he got fouled. 7. Tabor ahead with 1:40 to go in overtime. Here's Garner, strong move to the cup on Zoe Rust. She throws it up and makes it, and she gets fouled for one more. Friends ahead, Barberry goes up, and he flushes it down. Barberry taking flight and getting a body in the process. What's going on, everyone? Voice of the Friends Falcons, Pat Strathman here with another edition of the Friends Basketball Show on ESPN Wichita 92.3 FM. We are chilling inside Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. Tons of TVs on the wall. If you have any interest in college basketball, college football, NFL, whatever it might be, this is a great place to come watch the games. There is a great game day atmosphere here. They have great game day food with that southern twist. Walk-On Sports Bistreaux, big-time supporters of Friends University Athletics, and we certainly appreciate their support for making this a reality every single week. Here tonight, you're going to hear from Friends women's basketball coach Dean Jaderston coming up for the Falcons. They take on the Southwestern Mound Builders coming up on Saturday. A tip-off time of 1 o'clock, a little bit earlier than maybe what some people get used to, so I want to get that out right away. 1 o'clock tip, so don't forget that. Come out early and be a part of the atmosphere inside the Garvey Center, and it should be an exciting doubleheader of basketball inside the Garvey Center. Well, Coach, let's just kind of unravel kind of the last couple of different games here. I know it's not just one we're recapping a ton of them. So let's just go to the most recent game. Unfortunately, it is a loss, but it was a big showdown last night in Leavenworth. You're going in with an undefeated conference record. St. Mary going into it with an undefeated conference record. You met St. Mary in the KCAC championship game last year inside Hartman Arena, so you have that aspect out there as well. Leavenworth is a long ways away from here, so you have to battle that, a long road trip up to Leavenworth, Kansas. St. Mary came out and hit a bunch of shots. If you go 46% from beyond the arc with 14 made threes, you're probably going to win the majority of those basketball games. Now, add insult to injury when you don't play well yourselves, and that can result in a lopsided game, which St. Mary won 83-58, giving your first conference loss here for 2023-24. Hey, conference championships are not exactly won this time of year, but it is a great opportunity, and now you can kind of go back and see what took place last night. Just your thoughts on what you saw last night in Leavenworth.
Yeah, we did not play well, and that's – at the end of the day, a lot of the stats you talked about and things, we didn't do what we went in there to do. And so now you figure out why. That's the big question. Why didn't we guard the way we practiced? Why didn't we execute some of the stuff that we said we needed to do? Probably the biggest thing was some of our habits, some of our basic things that we do for some reason disappeared last night. And so that's the big question. If we can figure out why all of a sudden we got away from the things that were working, why we got away from some of the things that we do best, then we right the ship. And you're right, we're still in the process of building this team. We're still figuring out how we handle adversity, how we handle a road trip where we start out slow. Or, and we did that at Kansas Wesleyan. We started out really slow. They hit everything. We bounced back. The St. Mary game was a really weird first quarter. We missed, I think, 4 layups. And one of the things that happened there is I thought for the first time in conference play, when something didn't go our way, it took us 2 or 3 possessions to react and to get back. And so we'd miss a layup, and we'd come back and we'd leave a wide open shooter. And against St. Mary, you can't leave them open like that. We would miss 2 free throws, or just turn the ball over and turn around and give up baseline. And so it was one of those where our resilience to bounce back quickly, that first quarter just wasn't there. And then there was about 3 moments in the game. I was watching the replay on my phone on the way home last night.
I'm sure you're dying to get to it right away, right?
You know, what in the world's going on? And we were down big, and we cut the lead. We did a good job. We said, there isn't a 20-point shot out there. Mm-hmm. So you got to get it down to around 10, then you get it down to single digits, and then you put the pressure on them. And second quarter, we knocked it down. We actually we outscored them by 6 in the second quarter, but we actually had it down to 13, and I think we had the ball. And we take maybe one of the worst shots we've taken all game. And instead of just running our stuff and getting the play and cutting it, and we turn around and we get frustrated, we leave somebody wide open for a 3. And it was like the back-to-back thing. Second quarter, we come out, we battle. Again, we get it down to 13. There's a timeout. They're rattled. They're rattled. All we got to do is get one stop. It's down to 10 or 11, and life gets really, really interesting. And half our team is in one defense and half the team is in another defense. And in this situation, there's only one thing we ever do. And so their best shooter, Delgado, we don't guard her in her favorite spot. And it's those mental breakdowns. So why? Is it preparation? Did we not go over that in practice? Were our kids mentally tired? Who responds? Who lifts the team? That's still the process. This team, they're not a young team, but they're a new team.
Yeah.
And so who picks somebody up? Who steps into that leadership role? I think last night there was just enough of this uncertainty, and it paralyzed us a little bit.
And maybe, sometimes when you do think, hey, it's a battle of undefeated teams, sometimes that can add to it as well, right? Mentality-wise. I mean, you brought up how don't know what it was. Sometimes you put more pressure on yourselves when you go, we got to get this win and stay undefeated. And I know everyone wants to win. You want to go undefeated, but when you add that pressure onto already what is a difficult environment to play in, and then all the things going bad, then all of a sudden the pressure just seems to mount, and it becomes too much to overcome.
Pressure and adversity are good things in terms of your team development, but they're hard in the moment. You've got to go through that early on. We've got to have our weaknesses exposed. One of the things there's a term we use a lot, we call it slippage. When you're winning, it's easy to let little things go. She didn't get a good screen there, but we still scored. Or, hey, we gave a baseline, but Taylor was there and we blocked her shot. So it all looks good. But we don't pay quite as much attention to some of that detail. And coaches fall prey to it too. Practices, maybe we're a little bit more laid back, or we don't emphasize some of the little things we might do if we're coming off a loss. And so some of that slippage happens. Well, it happens all season long. Anytime you're doing well, losses kind of wake you all up. Okay, wait a minute. Attention to detail. We can't let this slip. And so our kids will be pretty focused today in practice. I think they were a little wounded last night afterwards. We all were. You want to go into that situation. And you're also right. We talk as we build the season. The pressure first day of practice is very little. You just got to get in shape. And then you go to your first scrimmage, and all of a sudden the intensity picks up. And then you go to your first non-conference game. And then you go to your first conference game. And all of a sudden, this is another level of basketball. This is another level of intensity and physicality. And then all of a sudden, the top 2 teams are playing for first place in the conference. Our team has not played – this team right now has not played in that type of setting with each other. Mm-hmm. And so you have all these new guards especially trying to gel with our front line. How do we respond in that situation? Who dials in? Who plays very clear-headed? Who gets ramped up? And so we had to go through that. And we'll come out the other side. We'll be fine. They have to come to our place, and we'll be a better team by then. Basketball's great because you can't sit in a loss for too long, and you can't sit in a win for too long because there's another one coming in a couple days. So we got to turn our attention to Ottawa and figure out the things that are working well for us and get back to those.
Yeah, for
Or
sure.
turn our attention
Yeah,
to
I know
Southwestern.
what you meant. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know
Ottawa,
what you meant.
There's too many teams playing right now, so.
I mean, you got a lot on your plate and a lot on the mind for sure. And, yeah, coming up, it is Southwestern, and we'll talk about that game here in just a little bit. I do want to go back, though, St. Mary and what the Spires do. They're not the most overly big team, which makes it, I think, a unique challenge on your end because you have so much size that I know that's a way to kind of get back with them, but also on the flip side, too, defensively, how tough is it to face a St. Mary squad that's essentially 5 out?
They are the best dribble drive team in the conference, and they stay in it. They don't get out of it. They run it over and over and over. Mm-hmm. You can't get bored doing the boring stuff defensively against them, and that's one of the things that was tough. Ottawa is similar. They're not quite as skilled and experienced as St. Mary. Ottawa, we just stayed in front. St. Mary, we didn't communicate. We didn't stay in front, and watching the film, it's like there's two different teams that played on Saturday and Wednesday, and we flew by shooters, gave up drives, so then Taylor has to help. They can step out. However, Sims can play on the perimeter, but she doesn't score much from there. So even though they are a 5-out team, sometimes you can still have Taylor protecting the basket if everybody else does their job. And we got to figure that out a little bit. At the end of the day, like, do we overcoach? Did we get too complicated in our scheme? Should we have stayed more simple? Should we have played more man? Should we have stayed in our zone? We're asking those questions as coaches, and good teams do that to you. They pick you apart, and I'll tip my hat to St. Mary. They stay in what they do well. They don't try and do other things, and they have open shots. They hit them, so you can't give them the open shots. You can't give them the lane. We'll learn from that. It'll be a good film session today. Won't be a fun one, but it'll be a good one. And then we'll, after film today, St. Mary is done.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. After wins and losses, we'll go the day after. We'll talk through it. We'll evaluate. We'll show some things we can learn from. But you can't live in your last win, and you can't live in your last loss. So when practice starts, everything's attention is turned to Southwestern, and we'll get a lot better today.
Yeah, it'll be different. Dean Jaderston, our guest here on the Friends Basketball Show, Friends Women's Basketball head coach here on the Friends Basketball Show and ESPN Wichita, broadcasting from Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. A loss for the Falcons last night, 83-58, but before then, a win over Ottawa, 77-61. And you and I were talking about the Braves a little bit moments ago, and I know if you look at their record, I know some people will be like, well, okay, whatever. I mean, they just got done knocking off Kansas Wesleyan in their own gym, which it's a tough place to go play, and I'm sure that's going to be on your mind as you get ready for when you go to Ottawa later on down the line. But in that game against Ottawa, it took a little bit to kind of get things going, but you guys had a great second half. In first half, you battled extremely hard. Just your thoughts on what you saw in the win over the Braves.
I was really pleased with, like I said, it's the opposite of the St. Mary game. Ottawa, we stayed with what we planned. And even early on, Ottawa hit some shots. They were coming out. They're a talented offensive team. They hit shots. I mean, they hit a whole bunch of shots to start the game. And it's like, what in the world? I think they hit 8 of their first 10 threes in the first quarter. And we said that if they're just shooting threes, we will be okay. They can't shoot that percentage the entire game. They're not getting in the lane. They're not penetrating the zone. And it's gonna change over the course of time. And when we adjusted a little, we got some hands up on shooters. But we weathered the storm, I thought, really, really well. We got the looks we wanted, and by the end of the second quarter, we had taken the lead. We had a really big three at the end of the half by Ashlyn Ryle to give us a lot of momentum going in, and then we just kept gradually pulling away. And that's, I think, the type of team this is. They're not a team that sometimes you want to try and force a personality on a team, and it's not them. They are not I'm going to get in your face, press you 94 feet and go crazy, even though they're really talented and they can press. They're a steady team. And when you're working the ball inside, you're not going to put up points in a hurry. You're going to get those touches, and so it's just that steady progression that wears teams out over the course of the season. And I think if you look at a lot of our wins, first halves are pretty close. First halves are pretty close, and somewhere in that third quarter, all of a sudden things break wide open as that kind of relentless half-court pressure and just staying in front takes its toll on people, and baskets aren't easy, and then we get more and more scoring, and all of a sudden things open up. So Ottawa was a perfect example of that. I thought we had a really good team performance that night.
Well, and going one step further back, you take on Bethany, you go to Lindsborg. I just got done watching Bethany last night in a win over McPherson, and it's pretty typical of what they do. They get in your face, they pressure, and they try to capitalize on that. You guys went up to Lindsborg, tough place to play. You came away with a 69-51 win, and talk about slow starts. You didn't really have a slow start in that one, and in that building, you need to have those fast starts because if you let them get settled in, that's when it's almost like a shark in the water. You see the blood, and you're like, all right, now we circle, now we attack, and that's how it goes. So you gotta weather the storm a little bit. You guys were able to set the tone in that game against Bethany. So your thoughts on the win up there in Lindsborg?
Yeah, but Bethany got to handle their pressure. Last year, our regular season game at Bethany, I think we had 32 turnovers, and it was a 4-point game with a minute or two to go in the game. So it was like if we handled the pressure, we scored, and if we didn't handle the pressure, then they scored. Our guards this year are much more confident with the ball. We've got several ball handlers on the floor, and so the pressure didn't really make an impact in that game. They again, they're another team that doesn't quite have the size inside, so they have to double down. They have to do some things. And I thought we passed the ball really well. We shared the ball really well that game, and again, it was just there's not a moment in that game where you just say, oh man, they just went on this huge run. They just steady, do the things that make you really good, and I just thought it was a great team performance that it's hard to do sometimes on the road when you're in Lindsborg.
Yeah, I mean, especially up there in Lindsborg, it's a tough place to play, to say the least, and saw it on full display last night. Chatting with Dean Jaderston, head women's basketball coach at Friends University, here on the Friends Basketball Show on ESPN Wichita 92.3 FM, broadcasting from Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. Friends women's basketball 6-3 overall, 4-1 in conference play. Well, Ray Garner, she got herself recognized once again after those two performances against Bethany and Ottawa. I know last night it was a little bit different, kind of battling through some different things there with her, but last week another impressive week for Ray. Your thoughts on what she's been able to do here so far this season?
Yeah, Ray is just such a unique athlete. She's got such a quick burst, such a quick second step, and she plays so free. We get 8 to 10 just free points a game. In transition or in the half court, she can just beat somebody. And basketball, we talk about the gravity of a player, that when somebody is making an impact, then there has to be help, and there has to be adjustments made, and that opens up space for other people. And Ray does that. Yeah, she did get her shoulder tweaked in that Ottawa game, and we didn't know last night if she'd play until warm-ups, and Snoop had to evaluate her. And I think that was also a little bit of last night's struggle, as you've got the leading scorer in the conference going in the game, and you're not sure if she's going to play. If she can play, you're certainly going to play her. But then all of a sudden, all the stuff you worked on in practice with different rotations, it changes a little. And I think that might have been a piece of our just inconsistency last night. But Ray's a joy to coach. She brings energy. She brings joy to the game and to practice. She's a phenomenal teammate, and she continues to grow. Now we just got to figure out different ways to use her, and she's working on that and going left. Last night they were playing her so hard to the right, and she actually made some moves. Now we just got to go finish those a little bit more. But she's a joy to coach and a great one to have in the program.
Well, and someone else I want to note too, I know Taylor's reliable. Ray's been reliable this season. Laura McIver the last couple games getting in the double figures, which that's a big improvement, and that could be a huge development going forward.
Yeah, Lauren Lauren, unfortunately, had to make this transition to point guard. Just the way things work out and how recruiting goes and things that happen in the last minute. And so we asked Lauren to step into that point guard role, which means she's got to distribute the ball a little bit more. Probably the biggest thing in that Ottawa game was she had a season-high 6 assists. And when she's getting assists, we're really, really good. But Bethany she started hitting shots, and when she started hitting shots, it all of a sudden opened up the floor, and so she just gets more and more confident, more and more relaxed. She's seeing the floor better. People forget that she played her freshman year, took a year off, played a semester, broke her ankle, and so, she hadn't played competitive basketball for almost 8-9 months when the season started. So she continues to get more and more confident on the ankle, more and more confident in her role, and I'm learning how to coach her and what kind of situations to put her in where she's at her best too. So even last night, when we're struggling, we just need somebody to do something. Lauren finally gets us on the board with a little pull-up jumper, and we need her to step up and do that a little bit more often sometimes.
Dean Jaderston, our guest here on the Friends Basketball Show, the Friends Women's Basketball head coach, coming up on Saturday, a matchup with Southwestern. Saw Southwestern last week against Sterling, and I know things are different up there for the Sterling Warriors. It's not the same group that everyone's been accustomed to. I had to look down on my notes more often last week than I ever had to before with Sterling. For Southwestern, with Chardonnay Parker taking over rather late, you just never know what to expect when you have a team like that. I know they lost last week, but just kind of paying attention to them, they seem scrappy. They seem to play hard. They got some potential shooters out there on the perimeter that could hurt you if you let them wide open. This is a Southwestern team. If you don't play your A game, they might surprise you. So your reaction to what you see on film for Southwestern?
Yeah, they candidly, I haven't watched them much. Assistant coach Jasmine Lasky has them as a scout, so she's the one who's been.
Well, she knows a thing or two about Southwestern
there,
too.
Yep,
so
yep. But she
different though.
She's been doing the preliminary scout on them. So actually, this afternoon is when I start digging into Southwestern a little bit.
Yeah.
But just watching stats, watching little clips, looking at box scores. Sometimes when you get a new coach, there's just a new energy. Mm-hmm. There's a new optimism. They have nothing to lose. Nobody expects them to go out, so they can just play free. And that makes them a really dangerous team because in basketball on any given night, somebody can get hot and change the game. So they're playing hard. They're competing, and they're not. It's not the same old right now. It's still early in the season, so we can't go in and have a letdown after preparing for St. Mary. Can't go in and say, oh, it's just Southwestern. They're not as high in the standings. We saw last night Ottawa, who had struggled in the conference, knocks off K-Dub. And any given night, somebody can beat somebody with one hot shooter and a couple big plays. So we got to make sure we get back. Sometimes when you're playing a team where you feel like you have some physical advantages, they don't have somebody to match up with Taylor. I don't think they have somebody who matches up athletically with Ray. It's easy to fall back just on your athletic ability and think that that's going to do it. We have to get back to what are the essentials? What are the foundation of what we do every single night, whether it's a top team in the conference, whether it's a bottom team in the conference? Can we take away baseline from everybody? Can we stay in front and not gamble? And can we rebound? Guard rebounding this year may be the most important statistic for us when it comes to the end of the season. And so do we take those things for granted against weaker opponents, or do we go out and do the same things every night? When you have a new team, getting that consistency is one of the hardest but maybe most essential things that you go through. And so this will be a good test for us to get back to just what we do well, focus more on our stuff than our opponent, and be the best team we can be.
Lastly, you'll have one more game before the next time we talk to you, and that's College of the Ozarks. You played Columbia on the road. You faced Hastings on the road. You've had some tough non-conference games, Oklahoma City on the road. This time you get a program in College of the Ozarks coming to your place. And traditionally, the memories I have of Ozarks back in my day at Kansas Wesleyan was seeing them win by 40-plus in a national tournament and watching them going, Holy smokes. Okay, here's my introduction to the national tournament. This is a pretty good program. So traditionally, they always seem to be a pretty tough team. So to have that on your schedule going into the holiday break, how key is that for your squad?
I think it's absolutely essential. We are trying to get this team to realize that they can compete at that level. That's who we are. That's who we are on every single night, not just on a given night. That we want to be consistent in that. The Oklahoma City win was big. I think our kids underestimated them a little bit based on their record going into that game, but they're talented and they've been playing well since then. You always want to win that last one going to the conference and have a little, or going into break and having a little winning streak, and you see grandma, you can say, yeah, we just beat so and so, and that's the wave you ride through the winter break. So we can't take that lightly. It's the end of finals for us. Our kids will be a little tired and mentally, so we got to figure out how to balance that for them. But Ozarks is good. Ozarks is just tough. They are another team that runs their motion stuff really, really well, and they don't get out of it. So you've got to have your game plan. You got to stay with it. They're going to hit some shots. You can't get rattled if they hit shots. And for us, we got to make some shots. That's probably my biggest takeaway our last 2 or 3 games. We're getting too many point-blank looks and not finishing around the rim with people we have. So we'll do a lot of around-the-basket shooting the next couple days and get the pads out and see if we can't start finishing a little bit better, because we're going to have to against them.
For sure. All right, Coach, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck going forward.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas. Dean Jaderston, head coach of the women's basketball program at Friends University, here on the Friends Basketball Show on ESPN Wichita 92.3 FM. Broadcasting from Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. The Falcons 6-3. 4-1 in conference play after a loss to St. Mary, but a couple of games coming up at home, including Saturday at 1 o'clock against Southwestern. Coming out and catch the doubleheader inside the Garvey Center a little bit earlier of a tip-off time, so just note that 1 o'clock being the start time for that doubleheader on Saturday. And then Friday, College of the Ozarks at 6 o'clock. Make sure to plan that as well. That game will also be in the Garvey Center, and there's no doubt that'll be a big-time opponent with College of the Ozarks. So that does it for us here today. Appreciate Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. As always, they're always fantastic. It's a great place to be, very hospitable. It's kind of like they're, have that southern twist when it comes to that as well. When you think of the South, you think hospitable, and there's no doubt that is the case here at Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. You can come out, catch all the big games on their many, many TV screens that they have here, and, of course, got to get the food. Game day food with that southern twist coming out to Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. We are very thankful for their sponsorship and their support of Friends University Athletics. On behalf of Dean Jaderston, I'm Pat Strathman saying so long for Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. Thanks for watching and listening to another edition of the Friends Basketball Show on ESPN Wichita 92.3 FM.